Former President and convicted felon Donald Trump announcing plans to appeal his historic conviction. This after the jury found him guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records to hide hush money payments.
Dr. Stephen Caliendo is a political science professor at North Central College. He joins us now live. Thanks for being with us. The former president and really the Republican Party doubling down on attacking the legal system today. Is that a winning strategy with voters, do you think?
Well, it's certainly a good strategy for the base. This is the strategy that's been used since the indictments. So we're talking about well over a year at this point, if you think about all four of the different cases. And so the base is firmed up. It was really interesting in the last 24 hours to see how many Republican officials, especially national officials, members of Congress and the Senate, come out strong, not only supporting the president, but joining in on the attacks of the justice system, and then making leaps between what happened in this case and a broken justice system in general. So it's we're kind of in an upside down world here, where Republicans are talking about systemic problems in the justice system. That's usually where Democrats have been.
It must be working in the right direction, though, for former President Trump. He got $39 million in campaign funds just since the verdict came down. What does President Biden need to do now to try to win some votes?
Yeah, they crashed the server last night, I heard. So it's a good fundraising tactic for sure. President Biden made a statement yesterday, and he came out again today making a statement. I don't know what the strategy is going to be going forward, but if they would have been asking me, I would have told him to stay away from it. I don't think there's any reason to pile on. This case will go to appeal for sure. Of course, the president's family has legal troubles that are going to get underway here in earnest next week. I just don't think it made a lot of sense for the president to be wading into these waters. Assuming the debate goes forward in June, there'll be ample time there to address the questions that will certainly come about Donald Trump's conviction.
And for every second of airtime we spend talking about Biden or Trump's own legal troubles, is the second we're not talking about issues that affect voters. At some point, does that cause people to tune out, or do they enjoy watching this reality show?
Ben, this is a great question. There's a lot of people who do enjoy the drama, and one of the reasons people like to watch campaigns, well-funded campaigns, is the horse race component to it, and they like the back and forth. They like debates. There's a small group of folks who like, I don't know how small, but there's a group of folks that like that. But you're right in terms of elections mattering for policy issues, for governance, et cetera. One of the things that the Biden campaign has stressed for a long time is the importance of democracy. And certainly since what happened on January 6, 2021, there's conversations about the strength of our democracy, or where the democracy will be depending on the outcome of this year's elections. I don't know if that's a winner. It's such an abstract concept. I think most people assume democracy will be with us. It's not the correct assumption, by the way, but I think they assume that, and I think they're more interested in the things, I think, Ben, that you were suggesting, specific policy issues that affect their day-to-day life.
Well, this is definitely going to keep Donald Trump in the news. I mean, July 11th is when he'll be sentenced, and then he's got 3 more criminal cases on the docket.
Well, for now, Mike, he has 3 more criminal cases on the docket. If he wins the presidential election, 2 of those are likely to go away. I mean, he's been pretty clear that he would, as president, instruct the Justice Department to make the 2 federal cases go away. He can't, of course, make the case in Georgia go away, as that's a state case. But yeah, and none of those are going to be decided before the election this year. And of course, the appeal to this most recent case will not be decided before the election this year. So voters will have a number of question marks still hanging above all of this when they go to the polls, or when they put their ballot in the mail, as we often do these days.
Quick question. Can a president pardon himself?
Well, we don't know. It's never been tried. But here's the thing. A president can't pardon himself on state charges. Those would have to be on federal charges. And so if it got to that point, but the president can't pre-pardon. Now, you have to be found guilty of something to receive a pardon. So it's not like that Trump could come in and pre-pardon himself for the Jack Smith investigation, or the investigation about the January 6th, or the investigation about the documents at Mar-a-Lago. And there's nothing you can do about the state cases. That's a federal power.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
As the war in Gaza intensifies,